Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I would not describe Tennessee, Arkansas as a thriller, as this game, final score in this one, 76-52. Tennessee gets the win. What's crazy, Arkansas was actually up 10-7 at the under 16-minute timeout. And so Arkansas, after scoring 10 points in the first 4 minutes of the game, puts up 42 the rest of the game. They lose to the number 1 ranked Tennessee Vols. And listen, I think there's a lot of conversation to have about Tennessee. But when Arkansas shoots 6 of 29 from 3, when they get out-rebounded 51-29, when Tennessee has nearly as many offensive rebounds at 24 as Arkansas has total rebounds, there is a big picture conversation to have. Unfortunately, if you're an Arkansas fan or if you're John Calipari, though, it felt like nobody actually wanted to talk about what happened on the court, because instead, some very interesting conversations happened off the court based on something that John Calipari said postgame. So it's crazy because I actually listened to the postgame press conference because I knew I was going to be talking about it on today's show, and I was kind of wondering, what are we going to talk about? What's the angle going to be? And somehow I missed this. I don't know if this was at the end or whatever, but John Calipari kind of is in a soliloquy about what went wrong against Tennessee. Was it the rebounding? Was it the shooting? He did talk about that. But he said something else that certainly set the internet on fire. What went wrong for Arkansas? Here's John Calipari after the game.
The one thing I would do different in this game, and I all night tossed and turned, we didn't do a shoot-around today. And I just felt our body time is noon, pretty early. If I had to do it over again, we would have gone shoot-around. Because we had 3 or 4 guys like kind of no-show. So basically they slept, had breakfast, and never really, you play this team, you better be coming in ready to fight. And I don't mean fist fight. I mean battle. You better be first to the ball. You better be blocking out. You better run and get some free baskets, or it's going to.
So John Calipari says the reason that Arkansas struggled was that they did not do a shoot-around. Now, to me, didn't feel like a big deal. I'm going to explain why in a minute. But Kentucky fans who obviously dealt with Calipari for a while, they seem to remember that this wasn't the first time, because, to me, it's like they didn't do a shoot-around. Okay, no big deal. But Kentucky fans pointed out that this was not the first time that John Calipari has said something similar to this. Here's what he said after the 2022 SEC tournament.
My hope is we've been teaching them to be a machine so that you're never up, down, you just keep playing. There are games where you're not going to shoot it well, but you got to try to win anyway. And, the veteran guys, I would hope would know that. But like I just told the TV I was talking to that, I'm really upset with myself with the Tennessee stuff. We didn't do a shoot-around. It's the first time we haven't done a shoot-around. Then you say, well, why didn't you do one? Well, we had a bad time at the arena, so we were going to go to Tampa and just go there and do a shoot-around. And then it was only 6 minutes away. I decided not to do it. And the staff said, what's your gut say? My gut said, let's go do this. And then the more I thought about it, I said, hey, you know what? We can walk.
All right, so that was John Calipari in the 2022 season after losing in the SEC tournament to Tennessee, talking about not doing a shoot-around. This after Saturday, saying he did not do a shoot-around as well. So this became a huge talking point after the game. And I have a lot of strong opinions. Let me say this. One, the reason that Arkansas lost this game has nothing to do with not doing shoot-arounds. 2, I think it's actually a discredit to Tennessee. 3, I think there are legitimate things to complain about with the state of Arkansas after that game. But 4, That is not why they lost the game. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's break it down, because this video, the first video after the Saturday game, goes viral and people are going crazy. They're piling on to John Calipari. He didn't do a shoot around. This guy's checked out. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to coach, blah, blah, blah. Let me say this. For a 1 p.m. Eastern, and as Cal said, it's 12 in Fayetteville, to not have a shoot around before a game at 1 p.m. Eastern or a noon Central or a noon start time, it is totally normal, okay? And as a matter of fact, the first time I saw that video, I didn't even think anything of it because, listen, let me say this. I'm not trying to be the whole, oh, I know people in college basketball, blah, 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 blah. But it's perfectly normal to not have a shoot around for a noon Eastern or a 1 Eastern start, okay? As a matter of fact, I went ahead and texted 2 different assistant coaches on different teams from different schools just to get their perspective, one in the Big East, one in the Big 12. Both of them told me point blank, it is not normal. It's not, it's not never been done, but it's not normal to have a shoot around before a 12 or 1 o'clock start. The reason why, let me just give you a little behind the curtain how this all works, okay? So what they both told me was that players, like the game day schedule, this is it. You want your players to eat 4 hours before start time, okay? So if it's a 1 o'clock start time, you want your players eating at 9 a.m., which means that for a shoot around, you'd have to have the shoot around 8 a.m. Now, transparently, I don't really know the layout of Thompson Bowling. I don't know where Arkansas was staying. I don't know how far it was from the arena. But now you're talking about, for an 8 o'clock shoot around to be in the arena, ready to go. That's probably what, a 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock wake up call for a 1 o'clock game. And then also remember this, as Cal said, I know you can criticize Cal for everything, but as Cal said, he's like, dude, we're on Central Time. They were on Central Time. So now you're talking about their body clocks are really an hour earlier. They probably landed the day before on Friday. I know for a fact they landed the day before on Friday. And so you land on Friday night. You probably have meetings till 10 p.m. Like, it is not unnormal to not have your players get up for a 6 a.m., 7 a.m. shoot around before a 1 o'clock start or a noon start. By the way, it's worth noting, just for fun, I texted somebody who covers Kentucky. I can promise you, Kentucky did not have a shoot around before their game against Florida. Florida did not have a shoot around for their game against Kentucky. This is totally normal behavior. And so I got kind of annoyed because it's so easy to blame Cal for everything, right? But I got annoyed because it's like, this is totally normal. It happens all the time. It is not something surprising or new or different or whatever. But I can also acknowledge it's not something you should say, especially after a 24-point road loss in which you were not really competitive. Now, what I will also say, one, I don't think he should have said it. I think it's a bad look. Just take the L, take it on the chin, whatever. But I also think, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a discredit and a knock to Tennessee. Because you know why Arkansas lost on Saturday at Thompson Bowling Arena? By the way, I think they call it like the Food Mart Center, Thompson Bowling Arena, whatever. I don't know. I call it Thompson Bowling Arena. Where I'm from, it's TBA, baby, okay? You know why they lost at Thompson Bowling Arena? Because Tennessee's really freaking good, okay? As a matter of fact, and I am not making excuses for Arkansas, but I would argue that of every single team in the SEC, and I include Auburn in this, I include Alabama in this, I would argue that Tennessee is actually the worst possible matchup for Arkansas. I would certainly argue that Tennessee is going to make a lot of teams look really bad at home. They've already made everybody look bad that they've played so far this year. And I listen, first of all, I don't think anybody would be favored against Tennessee in Thompson Bowling Arena. That's another conversation. But I look at it and I say, you know why they lost? It's because it's a really bad matchup for them. Arkansas's guards, they want to beat you off the dribble. They want to get to the rim. Well, Tennessee has really good defensive guards headlined by Jemai Mashack. Also, what would you say about Arkansas's front line? Outside of, ironically, Jonas Adu, who got booed every chance Tennessee fans had on Saturday, they don't really have those physical low post guys. Big Z ain't that. Trevin Brazil kind of is, but he kind of isn't. Adu Thiero has been a great rebounder, but this was probably the worst game he played. Cal said it after the game. He goes that Adu has had one game like that all year. He finished with 6 points and 5 rebounds in 23 minutes. That is by far the worst game that Adu Thiero has played all game long. And so when people focus on they didn't do a shoot around, it's just insulting to me to Tennessee. You know why Tennessee won that game? It is because Tennessee is really awesome, and what Tennessee does really well coincides with what Arkansas does not do well. Tennessee, again, we mentioned this on the preview show on Friday. I don't know how many people realize Tennessee, how about this? They're number one in the country in three-point defense. Well, Arkansas finished 6 of 29 shooting from behind the three-point arc, okay? Tennessee is number 2 in field goal percentage defense. They are number 2 in points allowed behind only Houston. And so, by the way, Houston destroyed BYU. Tennessee destroyed Arkansas. This is what happens when really good teams at home that play great defense. Tennessee's going to do this to a lot of teams. And so to me, if you want to criticize Arkansas for anything, it's a couple things. Why they lost the game, not because of the shoot-around. It's really for 2 reasons. First off, watched most of the game. I thought they just missed a lot of wide open three-pointers that they normally make. Now, part of that, in my opinion, is Tennessee has the number 1 three-point defense. So they might look open to me on TV, but clearly if you're watching the game, you're sitting there saying, well, wait a second now. They keep missing wide open shots. Big Z, Boogie Flan, whoever. Tennessee plays elite three-point defense, but 6 of 29 from 3 is not going to cut it against anybody, but you are quite literally never going to play a defensive team better than you saw in Tennessee this season, unless you see Tennessee at some point later in the year. So that's one. I don't think it's a big deal because I don't think they're going to shoot that bad all year. The thing that I would be concerned about is the rebounding. And Cal talked about it after the game, and this was the part of the press conference that I heard, was like, we got to do some soul searching. Because if we rebound like that, we're not beating very many teams. His exact words were, we got to do some soul searching. And that is where the big picture comes in, concerns for me. One, as I said, Tennessee out-rebounds you by 22 points. I'm sorry, in the SEC. This ain't, Tennessee versus Eastern Illinois. This is Tennessee versus Arkansas. Arkansas spent a lot of money in the portal. Arkansas spent a lot of money on their roster. Arkansas has a lot of big guys down low. You cannot get out-rebounded by 22. And oh, by the way, not only can you not get out-rebounded by 22, as I said, Tennessee finished the game with 24 offensive rebounds compared to Arkansas with 29 total rebounds. So when Tennessee has nearly as many offensive rebounds as you have total rebounds, that is a you problem, and that is something that needs to be addressed. And so for Arkansas, I think you got to regroup. I think you got to focus on toughness and physicality. I think you got to get a Adu Thiero playing better. I think you got to get Trevin Brazil playing better. Big Z, I just think he kind of is who he is. But to me, it has nothing to do with the shoot-around. So credit to Tennessee. By the way, I don't even think I need to say much about Tennessee. We talked about them on the Friday preview. I think you could argue Rick Barnes right now might be the most underrated coach in all of sports every single year. Doesn't matter who he loses. They're just awesome. And I really thought this was the year that they could, in theory, take a major step back after you lose Dalton Connect. They're number 1 in the country. They're relatively untested. Now, certainly, I think it's fair to say they will be tested in a way they have not yet been this year when they play at Florida on Tuesday. Arkansas, they got to get right. But the whole shoot-around thing was so stupid and drove me so crazy. There are reasons to be critical. Like I said, I don't think Cal should have said it, but there are reasons to be critical, starting with the rebounding, starting with the toughness, starting with the three-point shooting, but not having a shoot-around before a game at 1 p.m. Eastern, it's not a big